Hello and welcome to this week's episode of War Eagle Weekly. How you doing tonight, Josh?
I'm doing good. It's been a busy week, but I'm excited to talk some friggin' ball.
Heck yeah. Well, last week we weren't able to get through all of our topics. Hopefully tonight we do. I decided we're going to do something just a little bit different. I'm going to tell you ahead of time what our topics are going to kind of be tonight. First one, right out the gate, we are going to be talking about can Auburn replicate what Bama and Georgia have done at quarterback? So, can we follow that template? And then right after that, we're going to jump right into transfer portal talk. We got a commitment from a transfer player. We are going to then rank the SEC stadiums and their difficulty in playing at them. Then we are going to give our opinions on the top five most important games on the 2024 schedule. I can guarantee you our lists are probably going to be very
It's
drastically
gonna be a little
different.
different.
And then we're going to jump into talking about a little bit about the basketball portal. And then again, last week we wanted to talk about a report that came out about how much it costs in NIL for NCAA basketball players. Super intriguing stuff. But let's jump right on into this, Joshua. So Alabama and Georgia. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier this week. I brought up the point that, maybe Auburn can replicate what Alabama and Georgia did early on with their quarterbacks. And for the most part, kind of Georgia, even still now. But Alabama did not get like playmakers at the quarterback position until, what was it, 2016 was when Jalen Hurts was
Yeah,
on
when Jalen Hurts
campus.
came in.
Yeah, I mean Blake Sims had a really good year and was very dynamic, but that was probably more Lane Kiffin than Blake Sims, to be perfectly
I
honest.
would agree with you.
So, so can Auburn follow that blueprint? Because I mean you got the first three quarterbacks for Alabama: John Parker Wilson, Greg McElroy, and AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron was definitely the more successful of the three. What
Eh,
are your thoughts on this? Is this something? Is this something that I got the stats to back it up? He very
Okay.
much was the more successful player.
I mean, what Alabama and Georgia's done, especially in recent years, is they've had the offensive line and playmakers around that quarterback to
Mm-hmm.
make their jobs a little easier. I know that is what Hugh Freeze is trying to do and turn things around at Auburn. Um, I don't know if they'll be able to replicate it this year with Peyton Thorne, but they've definitely set the Auburn Tigers up for success for the future with the playmakers they brought around for the quarterbacks.
I'm going to list off a little bit of stats, and I know we probably have some viewers' eyes that are going to roll back. But John Parker Wilson, that first year with Alabama, it's no secret Alabama went 7-6 that year. But John Parker Wilson, 55.2% completion, threw for less than 3,000 yards, 2,818 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. By the way, other than Blake Sims in his monster year, that is the only time Nick Saban had a quarterback throw double digit interceptions in a season.
Wow.
Um, and so John Parker Wilson didn't have a good year that first year, but that second year, he jumped in his completion percentage, 57.9%. His yards dipped down. He had less touchdowns, less interceptions, and Alabama went 12-2. Like you said, they put more players around him. They bought into Nick Saban's system. Nick Saban probably had a little bit more to do with it. Not to mention, the coaching staff was ridiculous in those early Saban years. But um, John Parker Wilson, he kind of screams Peyton Thorne to me. I mean, I know he didn't put up the same numbers last year. John Parker Wilson did, but I think he could. That last year that he was there, I think that we could see a similar season where he puts up pretty decent numbers, and like it's one of those things where we don't have to have this dynamic quarterback to be really good in the grand scheme of things. Yes, we want that flashy play on offense. Auburn fans are just dying for it. We haven't seen it in a decade now,
So long.
almost. 2017 was kind of crazy with Jarrett Stidham. But outside of that, I mean, Greg McElroy, he jumped up in his percentage. Nick Saban's quarterbacks progressively got better, 60.9%, and then jumped to 70% in 2010. AJ McCarron, though, He had a year where he passed for 2,600 yards, 3,000 yards,
I
but
mean, when you got
28
players like
touchdowns.
Julio Jones and Amari Cooper catching the ball, it's kind of hard to screw that up.
And that's my next point. Look at what we have in Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson, and hopefully these guys can replicate what those guys did. And I think again, I think Hugh Freeze is taking a page out of what Nick Saban did and what he built. This it just sounds so similar, the two teams, and I know people don't like to make the comparison with Alabama, but the similarities between these teams are crazy. No, I don't think our defense is as good as Alabama's early years defenses, especially that 2009 one.
Oh my
But
gosh.
2008, I think this is very doable. I think we have everything in place that we can be successful and follow that blueprint.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, not go to that blueprint whenever the greatest coach of all time wrote that actual, script to rebuild a program. Because that's exactly what Nick Saban did. And Alabama was a dumpster fire before Nick Saban came. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, I know we're supposed to hate Alabama and Nick Saban because we're Auburn fans, but you got to give credit where credit's due. Nick Saban is the
Right.
greatest of all time. He had the best scheme to rebuild a program, and he made a freaking living off of just dominating college football. So it would be dumb, in my opinion, for Hugh Freeze to not try to replicate some of that because it's kind of hard to ignore.
Yeah. And again, we want this all-star quarterback. We want the Nick Marshalls of the world. We want the Jarrett Stidhams of the world. We want the Cam Newtons of the
We
world.
want the
But
Juju Lewises of the world.
yeah, Juju Lewis again. Don't get me wrong. I will take Juju Lewis. I will not argue with that. And if we end up getting it, yeah, we're ahead of the curve. But Alabama's first few quarterbacks, everyone thinks Alabama is as quarterback you nowadays. With the talent that they brought in, but John Parker Wilson, Greg McElroy didn't
And
do
starting
anything.
with those
AJ
guys.
McCarron didn't do anything. Blake Sims had 1 year. Jake Coker, I forgot he was a quarterback. I was like, wait, what? And then Jalen Hurts. And then when Jalen Hurts came in, he was kind of mediocre and did okay for those first couple of
And then he
years.
just took
And then
off.
we had now I will admit that quarterback room at one point for Alabama was sick in Jalen Hurts,
Crowded.
Tua, Mac Jones, crazy. But these it took them almost a decade before they started bringing in top talent at the quarterback position.
It's
And
true.
if we can, I mean, so we don't need these world beaters at quarterback. And I think I think this is something that we could do. Nobody has talked about how this is the blueprint that we can follow. Kirby Smart did the same thing. We haven't even talked about Georgia's quarterbacks. Okay, so let's dive into that real quick, and then I'll let you talk. I know I'm hogging a lot of the conversation here. Jacob Eason. Anybody remember that guy?
Yeah, I do.
Crazy. Yeah, he had 55% completion that first year he was there at Georgia. Yeah, they had an 8-5 record, and then he got hurt in 2017. Jake Fromm, a freshman, came in, did okay. He had 62.2% completion, but again, he threw only 7 interceptions. The key here is not throwing double-digit interceptions. That's the key. You need a quarterback that is a game manager
Listen
that
up,
isn't
Peyton
going to give the
Thorne.
ball to the other team. Yeah, this is all you need. They went 13-2 that second year. Okay, Jake Fromm had 3 years where he was putting up pretty impressive numbers. JT Daniels came in, did okay. Stetson Bennett, he wasn't highly touted. He was a walk-on. Again, we didn't have this. Now, Kirby Smart, let's give him credit where credit is due. Kirby Smart had a very, very talented quarterback in that room with JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett. He had an NFL quarterback. He just chose not to play him.
Yep.
And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, again, don't throw double digit interceptions. Justin Fields had all the talent in the world, but he was probably more loose with the ball in practice, probably looked a little bit more out of control, probably not what Kirby Smart wanted. Now, again, we run completely different offensive schemes, but again, we don't need this NFL quarterback that is just going to blow people's socks off. Nobody is.
We need someone who can manage a freaking game. That's what we
Yeah.
need. Like you said, not throwing double digit interceptions. We also need a guy that's not going to rush decisions. He's going to
Yes.
choose the best option, be it a dump off or a deep throw, We need a game manager at quarterback, and that's where it all starts: is managing your games,
Yep.
managing your offense.
Yep, exactly. I mean, eh, yeah, if we have an NFL quarterback on this roster or in the next couple of years, great. It's
Great,
it's going to be
yeah.
great for us. It's going to only make us better. But nobody is dinging Kirby Smart and saying he's not as good of a coach because his quarterbacks have just been nobodies. Have they?
If anything, it's more impressive not having flashy names at
Yeah.
quarterback and still, winning the games that they're winning.
That
He chooses a quarterback that's gonna manage his friggin'
yeah.
offense and make the best decisions on the field.
Yeah, at best, Stetson Bennett is going to spend his career as a backup quarterback. But that 2022 season, he threw for over 4,000
Nuts,
yards, 27 touchdowns, and only had 7 interceptions. Had a
nuts.
68.3% completion percentage. Uh, that's what we need, folks. You know, yeah, the 4,000 yards is crazy. Okay, let's not go down that road. But we don't need these flashy players. And
No,
again, the blueprint is there. Why are people not talking about it? Why are people thinking that we need this high flying offense that is going to be breaking records? Don't get me
because
wrong,
it's fun.
it's
High
fun.
flying offenses are freaking fun.
I
Do you
agree.
remember Nick Marshall?
Yeah, no,
Do you remember Cam Newton?
yep,
It's friggin' fun.
right. But I've always, even during all that, I've always been a defensive first kind of guy.
Yeah,
I always have been. What was you remember the first thing I said about Cam Newton whenever we
I don't
signed
like
him?
him because he's a runner first.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I said that I wanted somebody that threw the ball at quarterback first, then ran. I didn't want this
Yeah,
crazy playmaker. I wanted another Jason Campbell back there. Boy, was I wrong, and I'm glad I was. But
the game changes, Cameron. Adapt or die.
exactly, I agree. I agree. So, um, so can Auburn follow this blueprint? Do you think we have the ability and the patience to follow this blueprint? Are we going to get all up in arms if we don't get Juju Lewis, if we don't get a top five quarterback in a class in the next 3 years? Is that going to be a
You know
problem,
the
or are we going to be okay with
I,
game
I think the
managers?
toxic fans. I think the toxic fans are gonna create a problem because they're the ones that ran Bo Nix out of the state. The toxic fans, they're the ones that just want these coaches' heads on a spick, and just I feel like the brass at Auburn and the coaching staff. What I've seen and heard from them, I do feel they are patient enough to
Mm-hmm.
to build what they want to build. But again, it all goes back to the fans and somewhat onto the players, because sometimes these players, they're not going to be patient. They're going to want to
That's
win.
true.
If we start losing, they're going to get tired of losing. They're going to want
Mm-hmm.
to leave and go find better, greener pastures. So me personally, I'm patient enough to wait for that. I don't want anything rushed. Of course, I want to get back to winning, but I'm willing to put in the work and the hours of feeling miserable if it comes to that,
Yeah.
to get to that point.
Yeah, no, and you bring up good points. Winning cures a lot of ailments. Because again, those first years under both of those coaches, 7-6 and 8-5. 12-2 was the next year for Alabama, 13-2 for Georgia. And then they went 14-0, 10-3, 12-1, 13-1, 11-2, 12-2. That it's just ridiculous. Whereas
The list just
Georgia
goes on.
Georgia did have one down year, but that was because JT Daniels got hurt, and then they were playing a freshman in walk-on, Stetson Bennett, so who was not even close to his 2022 self. So that's understandable. They go 8-2, but other than that, they knocked it out of the park with winning, and so that's the key.
Yeah.
That is the key, and you brought that up. Can this coaching staff win enough games to where the fans will be patient if we don't have that amazing Heisman candidate quarterback?
And I think they can. If not like really showing it on the field, I feel like a lot of these high school guys are actually buying into what Hugh Freeze is selling,
Sounds
and
like it.
it's showing. It's showing like he's recruiting at a very high level when no one really expected him recruiting this high this quickly. So it sounds like these kids are willing to put in the work, put in
Yeah,
the hours, and lay it all on the line for Auburn to get back to winning. So I
yeah.
feel the culture at Auburn is at a very good place to get back there.
Now this is something that we didn't quite discuss as far as a topic, but it, it goes into what you're saying about recruiting and this coaching staff doing a great job recruiting. Juju Lewis just announced his official visits, and yeah, he has the ability to add two more, but he's already announced three. USC, which he's on the outs there. That's what
He's
everyone
committed
thinks.
there, so
Okay,
yeah.
but he's committed to there, so that's one. Indiana, yeah, that ain't happening. Okay, and then Auburn. Auburn is the third. So we are in the thick of this for Juju Lewis, who is a program changer. He is somebody that can come in and all Auburn fans will be like, Walker who? Because he is
I
that
mean,
kind of
I don't
player.
want it to come to that. I think Walker White was a huge piece to the 2024 recruiting class.
Right.
I want to see him get his shot, but I
Of
mean,
course.
Juju
Yeah.
Lewis
Now,
is
he
once in
is,
a lifetime, in my opinion.
yeah, and how does the saying go? Don't count the chickens you don't have, count the ones you do have, and Walker White is the one that we do have right now. So,
Yep.
but tell me that those wide receivers would not be okay with Juju Lewis throwing them the football. If you can give them the football, they don't care who you are.
Oh yeah, you know they would be okay with it. So again, it's just one of those things. If it happens, awesome. If it doesn't, then on to the next guy.
But everything points to the fact that we can win without Juju Lewis and without one of
Oh
those top
yeah,
10 quarterbacks.
absolutely. I mean,
Yep.
like again, it all comes down to recruiting and the guys that commit to us. Like these players that are already committed to Auburn for 2025 are already recruiting for Auburn. I mean,
Yep.
I had a small discussion with our new linebacker commit Tyler Lockhart over on X, and he told me he's putting in work for 5-star Caleb Cunningham at wide receiver. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if we don't get Juju Lewis and we can get a guy like Caleb Cunningham, someone's doing something right. Someone's showing the right things. It's just it's all uphill in my opinion. It's just everything is looking up and moving in the right direction.
No, it's fair. That's fair. And I couldn't say it any better. So let's move on to our next topic. We had a transfer portal addition. Where they're going to be far and few between. They're not going to be your top end talents. They're not going to be the ones that are going to be game changers. But this one kind of means a little bit more. We got the commitment of Antoine Fagin Jr. And Josh, tell everybody why this is such a big commitment and a big, big thing for us.
Depth. Just adds more depth. He's a talented guy. He knows what he's doing. He's a tall guy, 6'3", 195 pounds. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
lengthy. He's pretty good at what he does. Just above all else, it's depth at a position that everyone thought was going to be weak for this season, and it's just getting more and more depth.
Yeah, and on top of that, his brother is a four-star safety in the 2025 class, and so the thought out there was that they wanted to play together, so it puts us in the driver's seat for his brother, which again, just great job recruiting by this coaching staff.
Yep.
So, moving right along, let's get into the discussion where we're going to have a little bit of fun. The off season, there's hardly anything to talk about. We have to manufacture a lot. So let's go ahead and there was an article that came out. I can't remember who it was that posted it, but they ranked the most difficult home stadiums to play in the SEC, and they had Auburn at like number 14, I think. But they
Oh,
were
that's
basing it.
ridiculous.
Now here's the thing: they were basing it off of the last 5 years records. Um, but the thing is, I don't think a team's record at home is the end all be all for how difficult it is to play in that stadium. Let's look at Mississippi State for instance. Okay, not a hard team to beat. They're not a very talented team. When Leach was there, they had, you couldn't overlook them, and Auburn certainly did a couple times. But at the same time, did we ever want to go into Mississippi State and
No,
play
it's a
there?
terrible place to go. It's a terrible place to watch on TV. Those damn cowbells get on my freaking nerves. I
Right.
can only imagine what those players are thinking on the field.
But it's a great home field advantage for them, and it makes their stadium one of the tougher environments to play in this country in this conference. So
I agree.
let's start off. Go ahead and give us your numbers 16 through 12.
Okay. Number 16, number 16 and 15 are going to be the new additions to the SEC because,
Oh,
haven't really spent a whole lot of time in the SEC playing SEC teams in their
wow.
stadium. So I really haven't paid too much attention to Texas or Oklahoma's home field advantages. I know Texas is my second go to team behind Auburn. When they're not playing, I'm watching Texas on TV because I like Texas.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of home field advantage, I really don't really have too much knowledge on what they are provided from their fans in their home stadiums. So that's why I have them ranked so low. Oklahoma
Okay.
16, Texas 15. Number 14, I have Vanderbilt. They were building their mega whatever you want to call it, their mega what's it called,
Stadium? I don't
the
know.
scoreboard, their huge
Oh
screen
yeah.
scoreboard in the one end zone. So I just don't think that's a very daunting place to play at all. I mean,
Never
if they're
has
gonna
been,
have
never will be.
they're gonna have construction in the middle of the season, they obviously don't take things too seriously. Um, Next, I have Arkansas. I don't think they are provided any sort of home field advantage from their fans. I mean, Woo Pig Sooie gets very annoying very quickly, but that's small tomatoes compared to the other teams on the list. And number 12, I have Kentucky. They
Okay.
would have been lower, but they are getting up there in fandom, and their fans are getting a little more crazy about their football program ever since Stoops arrived. So yeah, that is my bottom five.
Yeah, I think even in the beginning years of Mark Stoops being there, I think Kentucky is number 13 when we had 14 teams. They're number 13 on this list, so they've moved up quite a bit. Now I will say I'll give you my first five. I'm using Oklahoma and Texas's their paralysis outside of the SEC as part of their rankings. I can tell you now. I'll give you a little sneak peek. Both of them are in the top 10 as far as hardest environments to play in. Most difficult SEC stadiums. But number 16, no surprise, Vandy. I mean, you said it all. Number 15, I agree. Arkansas is up there for me. I've been to Arkansas, beautiful stadium, especially during the fall. Um, and the fans were really nice. Me and my brother Brandon actually went to the 6 overtime game with Sean White as the quarterback that one year. So that was a great environment to play in. So they're pretty low on this list, but it was still a nice stadium. Number 14, I got South Carolina. I mean, they're the South Carolina. Number 13. Now this is where I want to add the caveat. Just because your team is good and win home games does not mean that your stadium is a tough home field advantage. And with that being said, Ole Miss at number 13.
Wow.
They are 25 and 8 over the last 5 years at home. So, great record, but can you tell me one time that you've been like, "Oh crap, we're going to Ole Miss. Oh, that's a tough environment."
Oh,
No.
I agree with you, but that I still think they deserve to be in the top 10, lower top 10, but I believe they deserve to be in the top 10.
Nope. And then I too have Kentucky at number 12. They're moving up, but I had a hard time putting them ahead any farther ahead than 12. Um, Josh, go ahead and give us your next five.
Okay, I'm kind of switching things up as I'm looking at it because I don't know what I was thinking on some of these rankings. At number 11, I'm going to put South Carolina. Um, back in the day, I didn't really like going to South Carolina, especially when Steven Garcia was their quarterback, even though he was
Mm,
Auburn's best player on the field when their offense was off the field. Because he always threw his interceptions, but the fans are just insufferable. I hate South Carolina fans. They're
okay.
just ridiculous. And then number 10, I have Missouri. Again, they're another team that's moving on up. Their fans are pretty loud. They're pretty, die hard. It's just, in all reality, it's a pretty small stadium, but the fans are
Yeah.
pretty loyal, so I would say it does offer somewhat of a home field advantage for them. Um, Number 9, I'm gonna put Ole Miss. Like I said, lower top 10. I'm gonna say Ole
Okay.
Miss. Lane Kiffin has definitely turned that program around. They're no longer a easy win on your schedule like they were in the past. And their fans again insufferable. They're rowdy. They yeah they just I feel they
They're
give
not
Ole
that
Miss a
rowdy.
pretty decent home field advantage. Um, Number 8, I'm gonna put Mississippi State. I moved them
Okay.
down one on my list, and I'm going to put Mississippi State in number 8. Again, them cowbells. Oh my gosh, they're so annoying on TV. I can't imagine what these players are feeling and thinking on the field, having to
I
listen
agree.
to that junk. Um, Number 7, I'm going to put Rocky Top. Rocky Top back in the
Mm.
day, man, as that was one hell of a
Yeah.
place to play. They haven't really
I
been doing anything other than the
well,
past couple of
no, I
years.
I still think that Rocky Top is a hard, tough place to play. Just ask, uh, you know, uh, the opposing teams and the mustard being thrown at them. Oh wait, that's Lane Kiffin. He probably deserved it. Let's just be honest. But still, I think it's a tough environment. So I have them much higher than that on my list. By the way,
All right.
little tidbit. So I'll start off. Number 11, I got Missouri. Like you said, I was surprised by their home record the last 5 years, 25-9. Um, then at number 10, I got Texas A&M. Kyle Field is tough, but they've been I, it's been a lot of what have you done for me lately, and they just haven't done great at home. They lost to Appalachian State a couple years ago at home. So I
Dude, it's the
just I
12th
just don't.
man, bro.
I
They're
know,
all
I
like
know,
no
and
one likes going to
it's a
College
hot take.
Station, dude. No one.
It's a hot take. I think they're a top 10 stadium. I just don't I don't fear it that much. I don't fear it that much. I listened to a podcast. It's called the Auburn Wishbone podcast. They've been around for a long time, 2012. So they've been doing this for more than a decade. And a couple years ago, they went to the Texas A&M game, and they had to pump in music through speakers because their fans just weren't making enough noise.
When
They
was
weren't
this?
impressed with it. I've never been really too impressed with it. Yeah, it's the 12th man, and yeah, during a big game they get real rowdy, but 9 times out of 10 they're really not that intimidating.
Uh,
So, um, number 9, I got Texas. I mean, Texas is a perennial team that's been around for a very long time. Those fans are rowdy. They expect excellence. It's always been a tough environment to play, even when Texas wasn't good. So I got to put them at the top in the top 10. Number 8, Mississippi State. You already talked about the Cowbells, and we already talked about them. Number 7, I got Oklahoma at number 7. Uh, those fans, they don't have anything else to do in Oklahoma, and so they show up to the game day and are just absolutely insane. Kudos to them. 27-3 over the last 5 years, and that's even with the bad year that Brett Venables had last year with that team. So that's why I have them at number 7. So, Josh, hold off on your number 1. Well, I guess it won't be any kind of surprise. Go ahead and take us down to your number 1,
all
6
right.
through 1.
Number 6, I have College Station. No one likes playing at Kyle Field,
It's
especially at
fair.
night. I mean, I feel like they're more famous for their mid afternoon kickoffs because
Yeah.
everyone's just super rowdy. It's super hot, and everyone's already drunk by that time. So College Station, in my mind, is definitely still a very daunting place to play. Number 5, I have Bryant Denny. I don't
Mm,
know if that's a little bit of a shock to you.
okay.
I don't know where you have them on your list, but
Nope.
Bryant Denny is definitely a top 5,
Not a
stadium.
shock.
A very, very hard place to play, especially in today's day and age. The fans can't stand them. They're loud. They're obnoxious. They give Alabama one hell of a home field advantage. Um, at number 4, I have Jordan Hare. It's a very very tough place to play. You ask anybody that
Yeah.
plays football, they're going to tell you they hate going to Jordan Hare.
Weird things happen
Weird things
in Jordan
happen
Air.
at Jordan Hare.
Yeah.
Um, number was it number 3? I have
Here, let's. Actually, leave your top three.
Okay.
We'll do top three here in a second. I'm gonna give you, for me, number six. I got Alabama. Not too scary. Again, just because they're a good team, they have a good record at home. Those fans, they will leave the stadium real quick,
Yeah,
man.
they
They want to
will.
beat that traffic.
They also kill
Uh,
people.
num- Number five, Georgia.
Wow.
They've moved up. Yeah, they've moved up. I think 3 years ago, I don't even think they're a top 10 toughest place to play. Again, just because your team is good and wins games at home does not mean that their home stadium and their home crowd is something to fear. And
Dude,
up until a couple of years ago, they weren't.
that dog pound is
They're moving up.
ferocious.
They're moving up. So in the next 3 years, maybe they're in the top three. But right now, I got them at number five. Number four, I too have Auburn. I mean, despite our record, 22-12 over the last 5 years. Uh, Man, you just go back again. Every Auburn fan knows this. Go back and watch that Caddy game against Texas A&M,
So friggin'
and tell me
inspiring,
that
dude.
that
Oh
is
my
not
gosh.
the top one of the top five toughest stadiums in the SEC, and definitely a top 10 location in the
Yeah,
country.
absolutely.
So I got number Auburn at number four. I'm bugging. I'll admit. So Josh, let's take turns here. Number three, what do you got?
I have Sanford Stadium at number 3. That's Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, that dog
Yep.
pound, like I said when you're talking about them, they're freaking ferocious. They are loud. They are mean. They mean business.
Number three, I got Tennessee. Rocky Top, man.
That is a lot higher than
Yeah,
I
they're
had them.
living. They're yeah, a lot higher. Again, they're 24-11 the last 5 years, but they're on the way up again. The team themselves, but Rocky Top was always, even when Tennessee was crappy, fans stuck around. There's 105 of them,
I was about to
105,000 of
say
them.
that's not a lot. Sounds
And
like Coleman
you
Coliseum.
can never count out that they're gonna throw freaking mustard bottles at you, golf balls at you. They're gonna go and grab the freaking goalpost and go throw it in the river. Again, that's a crazy place, man. Top three easily. Top three easily.
Okay,
Okay,
valid.
number two for you.
Number 2, I got the Swamp. That
Oh,
is,
okay. So our top two are the same.
are they?
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, because I have the swamp. Yeah,
did you
it's
specify
the swamp, man.
when for your number 1? Number 1,
LSU.
I got Death Valley at night. That is
Ooh,
number 1.
specifically at
Yeah,
night.
at night.
Ridiculous. Yep.
How
Yep.
long did Auburn
It
lose
took
in
some.
LSU before winning again?
It took some voodoo bow
It did.
to win a game. So I agree completely. Number two, Florida, and number one, LSU. Those are just by far the two toughest stadiums to play at in the SEC. I agree 100% right now.
That's a good list,
So
Cameron.
leave us a comment in the bottom. Let us know what your rankings are for SEC stadiums, and let us know why we are wrong to put LSU or Florida at number one and number two.
I think it's a no-brainer at
Moving
that
right
point, though.
along, you would think, yeah, but we'll see. Moving right along, top five most important games on the 2024 schedule. I'm going to start us off right here, Josh. Number one, it'll always be number one. It has always been number one. It will always be number one, and that is beat Bama. Number one most important game of the 2024 season. Rivalries top everything else. Nothing matters more than rival week.
I agree with you, which is why I have a rival at my number 1. My number 1 most important game of the season is, Auburn's first road game of the season at Georgia. In my
It's a
opinion,
tough one.
that's going to set the tone for the back half of the season. Show everybody what you can do on the road in a very tough environment against the Deep South's oldest rivalry between Auburn and Georgia. That is, in my opinion, hands down the most important game on the schedule right now.
It's fair. It's fair because I got them at number two, is Georgia, for the exact reason. Deep South's oldest rivalry. Again, it's a rivalry game. Nothing is more important than rivalry games. Who is your number two,
My
Josh?
number 2 is actually the very next game after Georgia. which would be at Missouri. Because if you come out of that Georgia game with a loss, you're on the road again 2 weeks later because we have the
Mm-hmm.
bye in between the Georgia and the Missouri game. So if you come out of Georgia with a loss, I want to see what you're made of on another road game against an up and coming SEC team who overachieved last year and is looking to do the same this year. So I mean, that's a very, very, very important game in my eyes.
It could Missouri could be top 10 whenever we go
They
into their
very well
house. I
could be.
agree. Yep. Number 3 for me is Missouri. I thought we'd be a lot farther off on some of these games. I think our last two might be different. I know our last one is definitely different. But yeah, I got Missouri. It could be right coming off of either the Georgia win, the high, and that Missouri game becomes a big trap game, or off of the loss. And Missouri, again, you can't overlook them. So
Exactly.
uh, we no longer have East and West divisions, so every SEC game is just as important as the last one. And Missouri looks to be a tough team this year. We'll see if they can continue some of their success that they had last year. But it's going to define our season, I think. Who do you have at number 3, Josh?
Number 3, I actually have Alabama. I was watching, Locked On Auburn a couple days ago, and they were talking about how they're not going to be super convinced that Auburn's back to being competitive until they're able to beat both Georgia and Alabama on the road. And I do agree with that. However, I'm also going to take it as a win if Auburn can come out of those rivalry games on the road 1-2. I don't think it's acceptable to be 0-2 in the same season against those teams, just like it wasn't acceptable last year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but having beaten Alabama is definitely a top 3 important game of this season. Uh, a lot of times
Most certainly.
Auburn's season is built around beating Alabama. I want us to shoot for bigger aspirations and brighter stars. So that's what I'm counting on this year. To get to come out of those games 1-2 at the very least.
Yep. And the thing is the first year without Nick Saban, we got to prove to the other side of the state that they're no longer going to have this dominance over us. So I agree, it's a big game. Number 4, I got Oklahoma.
That's who I got at number
Is
4.
that what you got as well? Holy crap! See, here we are thinking we're going to be shaking it up and talking about different games, but we're talking about the same games, a little bit different order. But Oklahoma, welcome to the SEC,
Welcome to
and
Jordan
a
Hare.
little bit of sweet revenge, hopefully, from the bowl
Yeah.
game where they stomped us into the ground.
And they had an
So,
ace in the hole that game. We didn't.
yeah. So, well, since our number 4s are the same, let's go ahead and go over our number 5s. I'll let you go give your number 5
My number
first.
5 is Cal.
Okay, good.
Because
Okay, we don't have the same.
that's actually our
We have the
that's
different.
our first actual real test of the season after Alabama A&M. They're going to want revenge for what we did to them in their stadium at night. Just made them look stupid, even though they made Auburn look stupid. But we came
It
out
wasn't at
victorious.
night. It was in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, for some folks,
Freaking
it was
ridiculous.
definitely a night game though. The crickets were chirping, because it definitely was a very boring game. Came out on top though, and Cal's going to be out for
Yeah.
revenge, and that's why they're number 5 for me.
Number 5 for me is actually New Mexico. I have them on here for one reason only. I know they're not New Mexico State, but we cannot lose two different New Mexico teams in 2 consecutive years. It just can't happen. So that is definitely on the list of we need to whoop some
Yeah,
ass,
agree.
and we need to take it out on them and be like, hey, we know you're not your stepbrother, but you're gonna get that ass whooping that they should
That
have
is
got.
definitely a interesting number 5. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So moving right along, we're going to talk about basketball portal for a quick second because I'm not going to push this NIL talk another week. Basketball portal. We got we're trying to get Dylan Mitchell, the forward, out of Texas. He was a former 5-star. He has Auburn in his top 3. He's considering Cincinnati.
We are his first visit in the portal too.
Yep, exactly, but he didn't commit right away,
Big
so
big time.
it kind of sucks.
That's okay. First visit's always the most important when it comes to the portal transfers.
So he has Cincinnati and Miami in his top three. Just should be a great backup power forward for us. I think Chaney Johnson would definitely still play ahead of him, but he very well could, you know, even out the minutes as the season goes on. He averaged 9.6 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 1.4 assists, and 58.5% field goal percentage. So, really a great player, but I think he's mostly going to come down to just being a role player with us.
Yep, I agree. I agree. It's still big get. We all saw that Acre
Yeah.
committed to Kansas State, which kind of stung.
We
I
were
really
both
wanted
super excited
Acre.
about him.
Yep, we sure were. But I mean, it is what
It
it
seems like
is.
academics.
Like you said to me while we were discussing it. Yep, seems like academics when we were talking before the show started.
Yep.
So can't blame
Yep.
them there.
So, now we finally get to talk. We've been teasing it for 2 weeks. Um, the cost of players in NIL. There was a report that came out, and they were talking to anonymous sources, some of them coaches. And I think as fans, we knew basketball players specifically were getting paid a lot of money in NIL deals just because the roster is so small compared to the other sports. But I don't know if we knew that they were this big. Um, so, according to anonymous sources,
English
right,
much?
including a behind the scenes power broker and two head coaches, revealed to Kyle Tucker of The Athletic that the number is well into the seven figures and perhaps as high as $2 million for players. Here's the
That's
here's the
crazy.
breakdown on this. Starters are getting $200,000 to $300,000. All conference players are $500,000 to $750,000. High end are $800,000 to $2 million. Really makes you wonder what some of those teams that were trying to poach Janai Broom, how much they were offering him, and how much Auburn had to pay him. I wouldn't be surprised if it
Now
was
we
the
now
$2
know it's
million.
between one. It's yeah. We now know it's between $1 and $2 million that they were
Yep.
offering them.
And then all five sources listed figures no less than $200,000 for starters. Okay, people, these are potentially high school kids that are starting and getting paid this. And in the state of Missouri, I believe it might have been Zach Blackerby talking about
Yep, it
how
was.
their laws in place allow them to pay the high school players while they're still in high school some of their NIL deals.
As a senior,
So,
you can't. Yeah, you
well,
can't.
yeah, as a
They
senior,
have to be a senior. You can't do it before senior year, which is still ridiculous in my opinion. These are 16, 17-year-old
yeah,
kids in high school getting 200 to $2 million. It's
it's
crazy.
ridiculous. But one source said Baylor, Arkansas, and Louisville have helped increase the market, which makes sense. Another source said Indiana, Alabama, and Kentucky as the off season's biggest spenders. So last week we talked about how Aiden Holloway was going to get brought up, and I think he wanted to make more money than what Auburn was going to pay him. I think it came down to him being upset with the coaching staff saying, "Hey, we don't think you're worth $200,000. We're going to pay you a little bit less, and you're going to be coming off the bench this year." And it sounds like Alabama went ahead and said, "You know what? We'll drop the bag for you." And they're paying a lot of money. Plus that Rutgers
Yeah, I
player,
wouldn't be
I think.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they were paying him $400,000 to $600,000. I wouldn't be surprised
I
at all.
wouldn't. I wouldn't. Just to stick it to us. Just to stick it to us.
Probably, yeah.
But
Nate Oates is that kind of guy.
does this amount of money surprise you? I mean, it's shocking when you first
No,
look at it, but does it surprise you?
it does not, especially whenever you see all these college football players getting paid and offered the amount of money
Mm-hmm.
that they're being offered. I mean, Marvin Harrison was rumored to be offered, upwards of $20 million to stay in college. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the college basketball players would be getting offered these low seven-figure
Yeah.
numbers. It's crazy. The NIL is still a very new territory. a lot of rules, future potential rules, have not been set in place. So I mean, who knows if they're going to receive, these college players are going to receive a cap amount of money they're
Yeah.
able to make from the schools and then earn more on their sponsorship deals. So I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like there needs to be a cap from collectives.
Yeah,
That I think they need to put in there. Like this is saying, like these numbers are astronomical, but 200 $300,000 for a starter. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I'm kind of okay with that. It's a little high. NBA players are, roughly making that. So it's a little high in my opinion, but I think it's well worth it. I like these ranges. I don't think a player from a collective should get paid more than $1 million a year. Yeah, go
no,
out and sign deals with Nike, sign deals with anybody you want to, Chick-fil-A, and make those millions of dollars with them.
Milo's.
But the collectives, I think, need to start having. I think they need to put a cap on it because
There does definitely, I agree,
this
100%.
could get kind of crazy real quick. We saw it in the NFL with rookie contracts before they had a rookie salary cap. So it's bound to happen. They're bound to put a cap on it.
And those top five picks were getting paid stupid amounts of money before even playing it down in the NFL.
Yep.
So I mean, there's going to be future rules set in place. They're not in place yet. So I would imagine there would be a cap set on collectives.
Yeah.
However, you never really know. I would imagine that Congress had term limits, but they don't. So it's just it's a wait and see game.
Yep. So with that, Josh, let's go ahead and end this episode. Um, if you stuck around with us this whole time, don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, and tell your friends, share. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're talking about. We'd love to interact with our listeners and
We'd love
viewers.
to hear from you.
And with that being said, War Eagle Josh.
War Eagle, Cameron.